So, welcome to the training on how to structure your speech effectively. The style we hope to use in today's training is going to be more of workshop than just me doing all the talking for all of us. So, we'll try to see how we can practically do it in just 2 hours. We'll start, the first 1 hour will be how to deliberate on structuring your speech. And then the last 1 hour will be giving you topics and then you structuring it. And everybody will have maximum of 10 minutes. We'll give you topics and you are expected to structure it in just 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes. And if after 10 minutes you are not done, the prize will go to the next person. And your structure must make sense. It must contain what we are going to look at. Basically, it must have an introduction, it must have the body, it must have the closing. And in the body, it must be structured in a particular way to allow thought flow, excellent thought flow. So it's going to be more of interaction than just one person talking. So I'm going to share my screen now so that we just go ahead. All right, I hope we're all seeing the screen.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if I want to assume that we are familiar with public speaking space, we're going to assume so many things because the focus is on structuring your speech. We're going to overlook how to research a topic. We're not going to talk about how to develop content. We're not going to talk about body language. We're not going to talk about vocal varieties. All those ones, we want to leave them by the side and just focus on how to arrange your thoughts logically. That's the purpose and the focus of this training. Now, Gerald Ford says nothing in life is more important than the ability to communicate effectively. And I totally agree with him. Nothing in life is more important than the ability to communicate effectively. And you cannot communicate effectively unless your audience understand exactly what you have said and they could see the relevance of what you have said in their own lives. If what you have said does not make meaning to your audience, you have not said anything useful, even if you spend 1 hour talking. If your audience cannot benefit from it, are not inspired by it, are not persuaded by it, or motivated by it, you've not said anything useful. And nothing in life is more important than that, because we speak every day, either in our homes, in our offices, in the marketplace, wherever we find ourselves. So how do you speak in such a way that those who hear you are benefited from what you say? And whoever can do this effectively will have the world as their friends. So once you are given any subject matter, the most important thing in public speaking is the subject matter. What are you going to talk about is the most important question you are going to ask yourself. What is the subject matter? What is the focus of this communication? What is the purpose? That is the very first question you ask yourself. Every other thing you are going to say is wrapped around on this one very core question. What is the subject matter? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? The subject matter is the most important thing in a public speaking career. You must look at the subject matter, because if you don't pick the subject matters and take it seriously, you will see yourself drifting from one subject matter to another. You will see yourself drifting from one conclusion to another. But you must pay attention to the subject matter. The other question is, who are you talking to? Who are the people you are talking to? Sometimes you have a singular audience. For example, you could talk to doctors. That's a single audience. At other times, like Toastmasters, you could talk to professionals from completely different walks of life. So who are you talking to is another important question. The next question is, what is your own view with respect to the subject matter? What is your stand? For example, if you are asked to talk on a subject matter, women should be given 50% political appointment in a country. What is your own view about that? Are you going to talk for it? Are you going to talk against it? What is your view? Your view is now your point of view. That's what it is called. And your point of view shouldn't be more than 5, even if you are talking for 3 hours, even if you are talking for 10 hours. Maximum 5 is okay for anything you want to say. Some people, you can extend it to 7 if you want, you can extend it to 20 if you want, but 5 is just okay, because the remaining will now be your padding. Your padding can make it swell, can add so much for you to say, but you shouldn't have more than 5 points of view. 3 is ideal. 3 point of view about any subject matter is just ideal for that time. For that time is very important. And then the next question is, how will you support your point of view? Assuming you want to speak for that title, women should be given 50% political appointment. What kind of view? What would you use? Are you going to use statistics? Are you going to use stories? Are you going to use history? Are you going to use humor? What are you going to use? What will you use to support your own point of view? Now, once you're able to answer these questions, you put yourself in a position where you are now ready to talk about that subject matter. The other category of questions is, after you finish speaking, what would you want your audience to know? What would you want them to do? And if they do those things, what are the benefits? For instance, what I want you to do after this training is to be able to structure your speech effectively. And then if you're able to structure your speech effectively, what will be the benefit? The benefit will be you will save yourself almost 10 hours of striving and working hard to understand what you want to say, what you want to do, how you want to go around it. It will save you time. And then it will improve your logical flow every time you communicate. If after this training or workshop, you are able to do that effectively, then the purpose of this training has been achieved. And the benefit of that is enormous. Before you know it, people will start asking you to come and speak on different other forums across the world. And then you will not be afraid, because you know how to guide your thoughts and how to move ahead as fast as you can. Then the last thing is, what would you want them to remember about that speech? What I would like you to remember about this training is, you are going to be the most renowned public speaker that you've ever known. You are going to learn about different styles and techniques on how to structure your speech. You will remember that, and you remember every other beautiful story that we'll hear along the line. Okay, so having done that, let's just go ahead with the first aspect of structuring your speech. Now, every speech, whether it's going to be a story, whether it's going to be a seminar, whether it's going to be a persuasive speech or whatever kind of speech, I have picked these 5 ways to cluster your thought. What I mean by clustering your thought is organizing your point of view and your support for your point of view. The first pattern is chronological. What that means is you could start with, if you want them to know your point of view with respect to date, with respect to sequence. For instance, you want to talk about your journey through school. You could start with 1980 something or 1990 something when you first started primary school, and then you went to year 2000, maybe you've gotten to university by then, and then year 2010. So chronological is a sequential arrangement with dates, particularly with dates. You must show, or you could start with step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And this is best used when you are trying to show people how to also learn something. For example, you want to teach people how to make cake. You can also start with step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. So chronological is arranging it with date, or with time, or with steps, one step after the other. So once your audience hear lastly, they know that's the last point of view they are going to hear. Now the second one is causal. Causal means you want to show people what happens. For example, drug abuse. You want to show people what make people engage in drug abuse. And then you also want to show them the solution to get out of drug abuse or any other form of addiction. You want to show people what produces this problem, and then you are going to show the solution that will be used to solve that problem. That's when you are arranging your thoughts with the causal principle. When you are doing comparative analysis, you are comparing one thing with another thing. You are showing the pros and the cons of the two sides you are looking at. You know, for instance, talking about male children going to school, what are you going to compare it with? Are you going to compare it with children who go to school and children who don't go to school? Are you going to compare it with male and female? Are you comparing the good and the bad? Are you comparing the bigger and the smaller? Comparative means you are putting two things together and you are trying to help your audience take decisive decision on which one to choose. Now, problem solution is you show people the problem and then you also tell them the solution. The difference between problem solution and causal is that cause, you show what produces that impact and then you give the solution. Problem solution is, for example, now there is the coronavirus pandemic. It's a problem. And in your speech, after showing them the depths of this problem, the economic, the social, the educational, the mental, the emotional, all the aspects of this problem, what solution do you now prefer? Mental problem that this thing is causing, how are you going to address it? What are you going to do about it? And so on. So you show the problem, you show the impact of the problem, you show the dimensions of the problem, and then you give the solution to the problem. So the members of your audience who are already been impacted by this problem can now see the way out. They can now know, okay, if I follow this path, this is the way out. And then lastly, the story message format. This is a very unique form of arranging your thoughts, and you must be good in storytelling. One of the best formula I've found in storytelling recently is S story is equals to C plus W multiplied by O. S is equals to S. S is equals to C plus W in bracket multiplied by 0. S stands for story, C stands for character, W stands for want, O stands for obstacles. In other words, for your story, there must be the character. Let's say Mr. John. There must be what Mr. John wants. That's a W. And there must be something standing between Mr. John and what Mr. John is trying to accomplish. For instance, like a student in the university, or maybe somebody who has a business. What does that businessman want? Maybe he wants to grow his or her business. So what are the obstacles? The obstacles are patronage, sales. So how did the person overcome the challenge? And then you tell the story in a very dramatic way, and then you give the message, the morals of that story. In that case, you will have 3 different stories to be your point of view, and then you have 3 very important message or morals that could come from those stories. So when the people remember the story, they also remember the morals, the lessons. The first story could be how to build courage. The second story could be the importance of love. And the last story could be the importance of diligence. So if somebody loves, what did the person get? If somebody was diligent, what did the person get? So your audience are able to match the story with the morals that you are sharing with them. There are so many other ways of clustering your thoughts, but I feel I should just explain these 5. On your own, you can look at other ones. You can combine them if you want. For example, your first point of view could be using causal. You can move to problem solving, you can move to story, and you can mix them the way you want. There's no hard and fast rule. But this is the most crucial point in structuring your speech. It must follow a particular pattern. Don't use chronological and then you move to comparative. You will confuse your audience. Whichever one you pick, make sure everything is sequentially arranged. And usually when you're also clustering your point of view, your speech, it is good to start with the least impactful ideas. And then you keep building the tension, you keep building the ideas until you get to a climax, and then you start coming down with the solutions that you want. That's why it is good to start with the problem and end with the solution. Except you are explaining a tragic situation, then you can start with the good and end with the bad. But usually the better structure for your audience is you start with the difficult and end with the easy. You start with the problem, end with the solution. In that way, your audience are inspired, they are encouraged, they are motivated, they could see life from a completely different point of view. So this is important in structuring your speech, especially those of us who are in Toastmasters. For every speech you are coming to say, try to pick one of these way of clustering your thought. Is important. Deliberately pick one of them and structure your speech according to what they say. It's very important. Don't just give the speech. Just maybe speech 1, I'm going to use chronological template. The speech 2, I'm going to use the causal template. The next one, I'm going to use comparative analysis. I'm going to use problem solving. I'm going to use story message. Deliberately put all your speech according to any of these 5. And I tell you, with time, you'll just discover that you are growing in the structuring of your speech. Okay, now having learned this, before I go to the different types of how to structure your speech, the topic for our discussion, I'm going to talk to all of you as one person now. You have invited to Toastmasters International Convention 2020. that is taking place in September 14, and you've been asked to speak on this title, The Best Way to Improve Your Public Speaking Skills. The best way to improve your public speaking skills. That's the title for your discussion. The best way to improve your public speaking skills. And you've been given 20 minutes to speak on this topic, the best way to improve your public speaking skills. Now, question is, how do you structure this speech? How do you structure this speech? Remember, the subject matter is how to improve public speaking skills. So the question is, how do you structure your speech? How do you structure your speech to deliver extensively on this subject matter? Now, your audience are a spectrum of people from different professions. You will have 500 people in that audience to speak to, and you have only 20 minutes to deliver your speech. So let's see how you should structure a speech like this. And at this juncture, every one of you are free to unmute yourself, and then we will continue. It's going to be discussion all the way from now on. Now, the traditional speech structure is there must be an opening, there must be the body, there must be the closing. The title is how to improve public speaking skills. So how are you going to open your speech? What will you be discussing in the body? And what will you be discussing in the closing? So let's go. How to open your speech. The speech title is how do you improve public speaking skills? So to open your speech, the first thing you do is to get the attention of your audience. That's number one. That is the focus of your opening. There's no other thing you need to contain in the opening than attention. You have to get attention to yourself 100%. Or worst case scenario, if you can get 98%, that's fair enough. But don't get less than 70% of their attention. So the opening must be to grab everybody's attention. All eyes must be on you. Once you open your mouth and begin to speak, within 10 seconds, everybody's attention must be focused on you. And the place must be as quiet as it can ever be. So the opening must be very sharp, must be very exaggerated, must be inspiring. You don't go there in the opening and then you start talking. No, it must start with a bang, start with power. And to do that, you could use a story, you could use humor, you could use analogy, you could use references or quotes, you could use props or pictorial display, you could ask a question and request a response. You could interact with them with the current issues that are peculiar to all of them. But the focus of your opening is to make sure that everybody's attention is on you. Remember again, you are speaking on how to improve public speaking skills. So what will you start with out of these 7 or 8 methods? Which one will be most effective in getting your audience attention fixed on you within the first 10 seconds of opening your mouth? Which one would you prefer? Would you start with a story about someone who was poor in public speaking? Remember, your story must be relevant to the subject matter. And please, you can't go outside your subject matter as a good public speaker. Don't go outside your subject matter. Even when somebody asks a question Bring the question to the subject matter, and if it's outside, ask the person to see you later. Don't distract yourself or your audience from the subject matter. Okay, now let's move on. So you could tell them, start with that, tell them your point of view, tell them the general action step, tell them the benefit, and then transition. Okay, so first thing you do is get the attention. Attention could be any of the story. Tell them what they stand to gain, and immediately you are done. The next thing, I hope we are getting in. First thing is opening with this to get attention. Second thing is to know how to transition. Transition means to move from opening to the body, and within the body to move from one point of view to another. You have to learn how to transition effectively. I'm just trying to rush through it. Okay, now transition, there are three of them. If you are making comparative comparison, you could use the word on the other hand. Okay, so immediately you use the word on the other hand, the audience will know, okay, he's going to say something different. When you are giving important information, one way you can transition is to pause. When you're finished talking, you pause for at least 30 seconds. If you can wait that much, or 10 seconds is better. You could pause and allow your audience to absorb what you've said, and then you move on to the next one. So that's another way to transition. The last one is if you are talking about practicals, you could say first, you could say second, you could say from start, middle, ending. You can use any of these methods to transition. Transition is to help you move to the next idea. So depending on what you are saying, once you use conversely, it means you are saying something different. When you use on the other hand, however, but, they are all transitions to help you move to something different from what you have been saying. Please don't use conversely if you are going to say the same idea. Don't use on the other hand if the next idea is similar to the other one. Just pause. You can also move without saying anything. You can move deliberately from where you were standing to another place, and then just continue with what you were saying. But once you use the word but, your audience believe you want to say something different. So when you say something similar, you get some people confused. So these are some of the transitions you could use before you go to the body of the question. So based on this opening now, what if you have been given the title, Improve Your Public Speaking Skills? So how would you open, and how do you transit from your opening to the middle? Let's talk about that now. You are free to unmute yourself. We're talking about how to structure your speech. We've seen the opening, we've seen the transition. Now the title of our presentation is How to Improve Your Public Speaking Skills. So how would you open that? Let's hear you speak. How would you open such a speech? Let's hear someone try. Hello?
Hello.
Go ahead. Welcome, Osasu.
Good afternoon.
You're welcome.
It's here. Good morning, sorry.
Glad to have you join us.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so sorry. In less than 5 minutes, my phone will run down. My car broke down on the road on my way to the house. My car broke down.
Yeah, sorry.
And I can't leave the car. So,
Oh, so sorry. Well,
yes.
you will have access to the video later.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do you want to start? Oh, you joined us late. Jumobi, do you have anything to say? Sodiq, Kaite, Esther?
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
We said the opening.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go with the story.
Okay.
Basically, I would first tell the audience a story. I would keep them in suspense. I'll tell them a story of somebody that had a life-changing presentation to make
Okay.
in front of an audience. I'll say the board of directors of the company he works for. He had developed an idea. He had done everything needed. It was actually going to make the company a lot of money.
Okay.
And when it was time to pitch the idea, he had stage fright. He got his tongue twisted. Basically, there was palpitation in his heart. His hands were sweaty. Just describe all the nervous emotions people face when they can actually communicate.
Okay.
Then I'll ask them, guess what happened? It's a story. I start with a story and I mix with a little of suspense. Yeah, that'll be how I'll start it.
Okay, fantastic. Kaite, how would you start? Will you use story? Would you use humor? What will you say? Will you ask a question?
I guess I'll also start with a story.
Okay.
I always start with a story because a personal story which I'll be able to flow and have my audience connect with it, and which is basically why I went into the search of better public speaking skills.
Okay.
And the story will go forth like Toastmaster Jumobi has explained. You are at that special occasion where expectations, people think, oh, you can do it. You've been doing it, but you've never been on this big stage. And don't forget, like what you just told us, we are supposed to make like a 20-minute speech in front of a diverse audience, you know? So, and then automatically, even if you're a good speaker in your own small zone, you have to like prepare for this bigger stage, which is what we are always coming out here to do. So by the time I tell them the story, what I went through, how the tongue was tied, how the butterflies, how it was even noticeable by the people that, had that confidence that I could do it. And, by doing that, with all the illustrations and, variations that you add to it to make the drama really visual, you could really feel it. I think after that, I have taken them to a height whereby they will want to know, so how did you get here now? The story you just told us, we can visualize you there. And now this is you doing this in a great way. If you can do it, I think I can do it. So that would be my starting point.
Okay, so you also use story. All right. Yeah, story is usually one of the most effective anyway in opening a speech. Does any other person, would any other person use a different way to begin?
Yeah, can I come in?
Okay, so they go ahead.
Esther.
Oh, Esther, sorry, Esther. Sorry about that. Please go ahead.
Yeah, stories are good usually, but it's good to tell a brief story so that people's attention are still wrapped on you. If your story becomes long and is not interesting, it has to be an interesting story as well. If it's not interesting and it becomes long, some people could just switch off. But then another way to start it is with humor. People like humor, especially in this stressed environment that we're in now. Humor will go a long way in doing, giving people some comic relief. So if you think you're humorous or you believe you are humorous, you could just crack a small joke that will send people laughing, and then people will just get the impression that, oh, this guy or this woman is a funny person, and that gets their attention. They will believe that whatever you are going to tell will be interesting or funny. I mean, that is a way of getting people's attention in opening. Humor, the use of humor.
Absolutely, you are very correct, Esther. Humor is also very effective way of speaking.
Let me also add my voice.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they go ahead.
Yes, for me, I would like to start by using a reference or quotes.
Okay.
Just put like a question, like statistics.
Okay.
Tell them on, I will give them statistics on why public speaking is very important to our personal life and our professional development. After narrating, I will back that up with a good statistics from a well-renowned or a reputable organization. Make a little explanation about that. I will now transit by asking them question. That what if I tell you, I can share with you how you can be able to navigate or becoming a good public speaker. So I make use of both statistics at the beginning, explain a bit of the importance using that statistics, then follow it up by asking a question before delving into the process of how to become a good public speaker.
Okay, so you prefer to use two?
Yes, I'll use two.
Okay, all right. Now that's another question. Okay, go ahead, Ekaite.
Okay, I was going to say that, you know, while telling your story, you won't just tell story dryly, because like you can combine it, and definitely while telling story, I'll combine it with humor, because you need to, like the former speaker said, Toastmaster Esther, I guess, when you tell story, you use humor, it relaxes your audience. But then you have to be careful with humor, because what you might think will be hilarious might not be to your crowd, you know? That's always the thing about cracking jokes. Like you go to a place or using humor, you might think that, oh, this is going to sell. And when once it didn't sell, you didn't pull it well, you know, you lose the attention of your audience immediately too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can I say something? Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Jumobi.
Yeah, I just write on what Toastmaster Ekaite said, and the previous speaker, the lady, Mrs. Esther. When you're telling stories about yourself to a large audience, the best way that we've seen, even many speakers do it, you use humor on yourself, not on any that, you know, like, so you laugh at yourself, something, exactly. You know, you are not going to get all 500 persons to laugh, but if 100 laugh, I bet you another 100 or 150 will laugh. You know, they'll join into the laughter, but it's not like you're saying anything about anybody, you're laughing at yourself. And it takes great courage for someone to stand on a stage and laugh at him or herself. So they will not connect with that person. Because after all, like, as we mentioned earlier, what we are trying to do here is to grab attention. But and I agree also with Toastmaster Ekaite. You see, like, most of these headings, a story has different snippets of all of them. It has humor. You could ask a question. You could even make a quote. It depends on how you arrange it. But it's all, and the story shouldn't be long. It's an introduction. So you're looking at least, if you have 20 minutes, not more than 2.5 minutes at most, or even 3 maximum, so that I can give you space to really talk on what they've asked you to come to talk. You're using the story as an anchor to get people's attention.
So now for a 20-minute speech, how long should the opening be? You have 20 minutes for your whole speech. So how long will your opening be? And then the second question is it advisable to use more than one of all these, any of these in your opening? Should you combine 2? Should you combine 3? Is it advisable to use more than one? I've asked 2 questions in one. How long should your opening be in a 20-minute speech?
Well, luckily, I think the 2 questions have been partially answered in while talking about what we would have used. I don't think the opening should be striking and short enough to keep the attention, but long enough for you to like make a meaningful intro to what you are going to present. And the bulk of your presentation is going to be in the body. So you will not dwell too much on the intro, not to in order not to make them not interested in the speech.
Okay.
Having said that, we have just analyzed it amongst ourselves before you threw the question that you can use more than one of the intro, like story, like humor. You can throw in questions in while telling the story, and of course you can also you have to translate after that, and you combine. You can't be one lane. You have to look at the audience, and then just when you're preparing it, you know how to mix and match to ensure that your story comes out or your speech comes out really good.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think Jumoke has said 2 to 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, for a 20-minute speech, that's not too bad. But I think I saw somewhere when somebody uses formula 10-80-10. So you divide your time into 10-80-10. I think it will help you know how long you should spend. That's 10 minutes, 10% of the time on introduction, 80% of the time on the body, and then 10% of the time again for your conclusion. I think that's a good formula to use in this kind of structuring of your speech. You know, this morning I wanted to give a story in my radio program, and by the time after the practice, I saw that the story would take half of the time. I just put the story aside and went on with my speech. So you need to practice, and then don't let your story go outside skills, because what you are going to talk about is skills. The analogy, the example, the references, the quote must be related to how to develop public speaking skills. Now let's go to the body of the speech. Some of us are already familiar with this matrix. I don't know how many of you have been using it. I'll put this matrix here. Now this is what I call the 3x3 matrix. This is now the body of the speech. We've left the introduction. We are now on the body of the speech. So in the body of the speech now, this 3x3 means you have only 3 points of view. For example, you are speaking on how to improve your public speaking skills. This, your point 1 will be on how to know public speaking skills. Your second key point 2 must be how to develop it. Your 3 key point must be the steps and the benefits. So here you'll be talking about what public speaking skills are under your key point 1, and then you support it with quotes, stories, etc. here. And then under key point 2, you must be talking about the how, or you can put it in form of a question. Your key point 1 must be on why you should develop your public speaking skills. Your key point 2 could talk about how to develop your public speaking skills. And then your key point 3 might be talking about when and where to develop your public speaking skills. So by the time you start with why, you tell them 3 different reasons. That's your sub point 1, sub point 2, sub point 3. 3 different reasons why they should develop their public speaking skills. And then under how, you give them 3 separate steps on how they can develop their public speaking skills, and then when and where they can develop their public speaking skills. So with these 3 now, you have covered how to improve your public speaking skill. You've told them the why it is important. You've told them the how, and then you told them the when and the where. So that will give your speech a complete and total strength when you are developing. So you could use this to develop. You can see in less than 5 minutes, I have finished the structure of my speech. My first line of thought is why. Why is it important? Why should they do it? Why? So I could think about 3 things why they should develop their public speaking skill. My next line of thought is how. How should they develop it? And my next point of call is when and where. So this has already given me the structure of the body of my speech. Remember the first one, I have chosen story, for example, was my opening. The body I have chosen why, I have chosen how, I have chosen when and where. And then the closing I can choose, when we get there, we can choose any other thing. So within just 5 minutes, the structure of your speech has come out. It doesn't matter which kind of audience you are talking to. The content of what you will now be filling in these broad categories you have created will now be audience oriented. But you've gotten the structure of what you want to talk about. Why, how, when, and where. You've already gotten that structure in your head. So it's just to fill in the content. And then don't forget the recapping of your main point. After you've said everything, please, before you transition.
Can I ask a question? Sorry to interject.
Go ahead.
Okay. Will it be okay or good enough at the point of when and where to also add who?
Yes, you can add who.
Okay.
You can add who. You can make the first one when, the first sub point here when. You can make the second one where. You can make the last one who.
Who, okay.
It's totally up to you. You can structure it anyhow you want. It's totally left for you. Or you can even make the first one why, the second one when, the third one who. It's totally left to you. You are free to structure it, but this kind of template helps you to gather your sequences immediately in your brain. So you know what to put first, you know what to put next, you know what to put. It's like creating the mold, which you are going to pour the liquid inside later on. So you are totally free to use any pattern.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then, like I was saying, please don't forget to recap before you transition. Before you leave the why, recap what you have said under the why. Give a summary of what you have said under that major key point. Is very important before you transition. So here, if you are using what is it called now? just keep my mind, please. Sorry. If you are using the chronological method, so you can say, firstly, we're going to look at the why. Secondly, we're going to look at the how. Thirdly, we're going to look at the when. Fourthly, we're going to look at the who, and so on and so forth. So depending on the type of clustering you are going to use, this is where you now start saying that firstly, you mention your key point 2. Secondly, mention your next one. Thirdly, depending on the style that you cluster your information and the one you want to use before you transition. Please make sure you recap. That's for 3x3 matrix. We also have another one from Toastmasters International. Now, this one is, you mention the key point, you have your sub key point 1. You can see the structure here, it is done. And then you now say you have to recap your main point 1. That's your key point 1. On Toastmasters own, you have your main point 1 or your key point 1. They now say for every sub point, you must have evidence. You must have something to support your point of view. For example, you say, why should people develop their public speaking skills? Number one reason could be it could make somebody wealthy. Why do you say so? Do you have any evidence? Is there any story? Is there any statistics? Is there any research? So for everything you say, Toastmaster method says you must support it with evidence or support it with any other material. You could use your personal life. You could use another person's life. So as a good public speaker, you must equip yourself with stories, with quotes, with ideas that people have said. You must make sure that while you are carrying out your research for this 20-minute speech, all these evidences must have been included to help you, to guide you on how you are going to support it. So Toastmaster says, when you mention your main point, and then you go to the reasons, the first reason, the second reason, the third reason, before you leave any of them, always support it with an evidence. So don't just say it will make you wealthy and then you move on to the next one. No, it will make you wealthy. In 1952, this person was able to move from being a pauper to a wealthy person, and this was because he was able to speak well. So you support that. By the time you finish out with that evidence, you also could now move to, you can become healthy, you can become smart, you can become promoted, you can become this, you can get that, you can get that. But for every one of them, you must support it with an evidence or support it. The evidence could be a story, it could be a quote, it could be it could be anything. Somebody wants to ask a question?
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to find out the speech that we're giving to this convention, is it a scripted speech? Is it a presentation, or is it just a speech without prompts? What is the format? Is there any prescribed format for it?
You mean during the Toastmasters convention?
No, I mean, no, the 20 minutes speech there.
Okay.
This assignment, yeah. So, introduction to Toastmaster International Convention 2020, best way to improve your public speaking skills. Is it going to be given without notes? You know, what kind of speech is it? Or is it with presentation? No, I'm just asking because of do you have to record the evidence by act yourself, or you are going to guide people through a PowerPoint, you know, in different
yeah, well, if I may understand the question, is it, if you are asked to speak now, should it be something you read from a note?
Yes, or should it be something you use a PowerPoint?
Or you use a PowerPoint, or you just say it from as if it's an extemporaneous speech, extemporaneous speech.
Yes, yeah.
Well, my advice is, whether you are using script, whether you are using PowerPoint, or you are talking from your brain, I think to understand the speech is better. You know, because to you, what if any of them fail? What if you even carry the script and you couldn't find it there on that day? To avoid sweating inside AC, it's good you know what you are going to talk about by heart. It doesn't matter if we give you the PowerPoint. I mean, as I am here now, if this thing goes off, the network is bad, but I can still talk. I should be able to express what I have in mind. Otherwise, it could be a very big disappointment on you. But you know, if you can speak it from your heart, you get the credence, the acceptance, the credibility of your audience. They say, oh, wow, this person is wise, was able to give this speech from his or her heart. So whichever one, practice might help. So you can choose any style at all can help, because in a convention, we'll see people use slides. We've seen some people just continue speaking from their head. But whichever style you want to use, I think is okay. But the bottom line is, in case any of these things fails, you still should be able to speak from your heart. Okay, so we have the 3x3 matrix, we have the Toastmasters format, and finally we have what I call Brian Tracy prep method. Now, this is Brian Tracy's own method for structuring your speech. He calls it PREP, P-R-E-P, PREP. Now, the P stands for point of view. The R stands for reason for the point of view. The E stands for example to support the point of view. And then the P stands for point of view restated. So if you give your point of view, Brian Tracy will say, why? Do you have any reason for taking that point of view? For example, they say women should be given 50% political office. And you say, yes, I agree. Do you have any reason why you agree? And if you don't agree, do you have any reason why you don't agree? And after you state your reason, is there any example? Is there any evidence to support that your reason, or you are just saying it from your head? And after you have stated your what is it called now, your example, you need to also restate your point of view again before you transit to the next point of view. But what is clear from the three of them is, in your own, the body of your speech, you must have point of view. You must declare where you stand. You must declare your own perspective, and you must make it very clear. And what the examples, the evidence are using is to help you convince your audience that what you have said is true. And you know, in public speaking, you have to add style. It's so important. We're not, your body, your hand, everything is to help convince or persuade the audience that your point of view is correct. You know, like I think I was listening to Jim Rohn, and he said he was so fascinated that people who speak with passion always convince their audience better than people who speak with eloquence. Because he said one public speaker was talking about and trying to convince his audience that the grass is blue. Okay, it was Dale Carnegie. He was trying to convince his audience that grass are always blue. And the passion with which he was saying it, some of the audience were already believing that grass is blue. Grass could sometimes be blue, even when you are seeing it to be green, you know? And he gave them instances upon instances with so much passion and intensity, with enthusiasm. And once people see that, people will feel that for you to speak with this kind of passion, that thing is so important and that thing is so real. Meanwhile, it could just be fable. But when you know that what you're saying is true and is real, you need to add the passion. Don't say it in a dry manner. So every other thing is to help persuade your audience that your standpoint is correct. For instance, if you say women should be given 50% of political office. And the way you say it with passion, with giving examples, using Margaret Thatcher and other other political women who have excelled, could help convince whoever you are talking to that it is correct, it is good. And if you are talking about public speaking skills, and you're talking about body language, you're talking about vocal variety, your pitch, your tone, the way you say it should convince your audience that yes, developing public speaking skills is the ultimate thing in life. For instance, you can see, look at what this quote told us. I mean, somebody said, nothing in life is more important than the ability to communicate effectively. I mean, if you're making this kind of statement, it's a complete statement. Nothing in life. I mean, it excludes every other thing. And as far as communication is concerned, whoever read this kind of quote, it takes communication very seriously. So whatever other, if you mention this kind of quotes on how to persuade your audience on the importance of developing public speaking skills, it should be so passionate. It should exude with passion, with enthusiasm. You don't need to. So all what you're using to support your point of view must be very cogent and fantastic evidences, proofs, props, whatever you use, which are all on this list. This list doesn't need to stop only at the opening. You can also infuse them into your body, into the body of your speech, and infuse them into your conclusion. They don't need to remain only at the opening. They are very important. These are the flesh that you add to the skeleton of your speech. Wow. So one thing is clear from these three different ways of structuring the body of your speech. First, there must be the point of view. Second, there must be reason. Third, there must be example. Please don't forget this structure. Why do you say public speaking is good? What is the reason? Do you have any example? Please don't give a speech without example. It is the example your audience will remember. They may forget the point of view, but they may never forget the example, especially if that example is a story that was very passionate and touching. So fill your speech with example. You know, if you read this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the ideas, the 30 principles in that book, if you arrange only those principles, it can be more than 5 pages, but the book is over 200 pages. Every other thing in that book are all examples and instances of people who use those principles and the outcome they got. And that's what makes that book great up till today. It was written, I think, around 1924, but it's still alive today. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a marvelous book. But if you read the book, the principles themselves can be more than 5 pages, but the other examples, stories, instances make the add flesh to the book, and the book is over 200 pages. So please make sure that you remember this. In 10 minutes time, you're able to structure your speech. Now, I have very few examples here. If the first one is using the 3x3 method, the first key point is the best speakers have great listening skills. Subpoint 1, there are 3 basic listening skills. Can you see that? The first point of view you say is the best public speakers have great listening skills. So one public speaking skills you want to talk about under your first point of view is listening skills. And then your subpoint is there are 3 basic listening skills. So you go ahead to tell the audience about those 3 listening skills. And then, no, the second point is you now use an example, a review, a reference from Harvard Business School. And, you know, say that according to Harvard, bright people always listen well. And the third way you want to support your point of view is my greatest achievement in relationship is due to my capacity to listen effectively. Now, the 3 sub-points as aligning with your key main point, which is listening skills. You tell them the types of listening skills. You tell them something that has been done on people who listen well, and then you share your own personal story on why you listen well. And then you can now conclude to say, to become exceptional public speaker, you need to develop your listening skills. So this is an example of how you can use the 3x3 matrix, or any of them, because they are all similar. They are very similar in their arrangement. The Toastmaster method can use the same thing, and then the Brian Tracy on, from a different point of view, more people are going to make more money in the next 10 years. So why do you say so? First of all, he uses the statistics. The number of millionaires, most of them self-made, has increased 60% in the last 5 years, and the rate, you know. And then he also used a quote, Business Week magazine, to support his point of view. And then he restated the point of view as saying that there have never been more opportunities for you to change the story of your life than now. At this point, you can now say, well, the next public speaking skills is, the next item is, the next. At this point also, you can pause for like 10 seconds before you start saying something else. But please make sure that your audience know you are done with this point of view before you move to the next one. And then closing is also similar to opening. Yes, I'll stop here. Is there any question before we go on break? Because by the time we come back from the break, you are going to structure your speech. I'm going to give everybody their own speech. You will structure it and then tell us what you have in mind to tell us. Any question at this juncture? Sadiq, do you have any question?
No, so far so good.
Okay, Kate, any question?
So what did you say about this conclusion?
Okay, conclusion is the opposite of the opening. In the conclusion of your speech, you are now trying to show them why public speaking is good. So how to conclude your speech, you tell them what they need to do. You can tell them if listening skills, body language, and vocal variety was the 3 skills you discussed. So when you are concluding, you can now say, remember to develop your listening skills, make sure your body speaks while you are talking, and inflects your voice while you are presenting your ideas. Let's say those are the 3 ideas that you shared. So you clarify what they need to do, because you are now trying to recap what you have said all through. This next thing is you state your point of view now. People who communicate well stand a chance of becoming wealthy. That's your point of view. People who communicate well stand a chance to become wealthy. So you can restate your your point of view again, and then you end with either a story, a statistics, a poem, anything that could last long in the memory of your audience. That story is to cap everything. That poem is to cap everything you have said. Even if they forget every other thing you have said before, they must not forget this story or this poem or these statistics. So that's how, in your conclusion, you are simply winding down. In your opening, you are starting. In the conclusion, you are reversing it, winding down. And then the last point at which you stop is end it with either a story, either a poem. In fact, most poems are even more effective. You can look for a very good poem that suggests that. You can look for a story, very compelling story. You can look for any other item that will help end that speech with a bang. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, sir. I'm saying SHARP. What is it, an acronym at the end of the?
Yes, SHARP is an acronym.
Okay.
Sharp, S is for story, H is for humor, A is for analogy, R is for references, P is for pictorial or visuals.
Okay.
It's an acronym.
Okay.
It's this acronym that we use during the body.
Okay.
You can see SHARP. Can you see it?
Yes.
So
yes.
that is the acronym. And then I put ask a question, begin an interaction on current and relevant issues. So, and that one, maybe you put, is it sharp, is it sharp part, or you will call it, or what? I don't know.
What's the E for? What's the E for, please? Okay. No. It wasn't E. P. Okay.
You can call it sharpad. I don't know. You can add the A and the B, and whatever that means, you can. It's just to put it in your mind that, okay, I need these 7 principles to begin. And you can use any of them in closing too, depending on your own style. Nothing is cast in stone. You are free to use it anywhere, anyhow that you want. So you can call it sharpad if you want. Esther, do you have anything, any question, any contribution?
No, not for now, Coach. Thank you.
Okay, so, all right, we'll take a break now for 5 minutes. And when we come back, we're going to continue with, I'm going to give you titles, topics, and you have 10 minutes to structure that topic. You have to give me an opening. You have to give me the body, what you want to say in the body, and just the structure. We're not talking about the content. Only the structure, how you would want to deliver that speech. So in the opening, you could put things like story and references if you want, or just story. In the body, you can put your point of view. Please take note. Your body must look something like this. Any of these is good. You can have 3x4, 3x5, 5x, I don't know. It's totally left to you. It's totally left to you. You can structure it anyhow you want, but it must have your main point, it must have the sub point, and it must have how you are going to recap it. Please, let's take note of this structure. It's very important. Once you, going forward, all your speeches must follow this structure. It's so powerful and so effective. You can use it to give any kind of speech for any length of time. It's so important. So you can choose any of them, whether Brian Tracy prep method, you can choose Toastmasters International method, you can choose the 3x3 matrix method. It's all left to you. They are all the same thing. It's just the style that is different. So you're free, but your structure for any of those titles must align with this kind of arrangement. And then you must have your conclusion. Your conclusion you must state what the people should do and the benefit they will get. You must restate what you've been telling them, and then are you going to end with a story? Are you going to end with analogy? Are you going to end with a prop? You know, when I was watching Toastmaster Wayo, he ended his speech with a prop by allowing the balloon fly into the air. You know, that was very effective. So you must also decide, what am I going to end my speech with? It's very, so for every title that is going to be given to us, that is the structure I want to see. Okay? If you want to share your screen, you can. If you don't want, you can just tell us verbally. Are we together?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll take a break. This is 12:15 or 12:16. We'll come back by 12:21. All right, see you in by 12:21.
Okay.